My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. I'm going to walk through the entire UFC Vegas 50 fight card. I'm going to give you my DraftKings picks and plays. We're going to talk about who I think wins, who I think loses, and who I think is worth the money and should be in your DraftKings lineup. If you want $50 free, we do a giveaway every single week for the members of this channel. All you need to do is go to wewantpicks.com/DraftKings. Jump into our very free DraftKings league, join our very free DraftKings contests, and if you win and you're a member of this channel, I send you $50. I just paid out last week's winner yesterday, and he went home very happy with $50. And to become a member, there's a join button under this video. Just click that join button, become a member, win our free league, and I send you $50 as a congratulations. Let's jump right in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort this by price. And this is an interesting fight card because we have a lot of live underdogs and we have a lot of people that are very expensive that I just don't trust that much. So let's jump right in. Right out of the gate, the headliner, Ankalaev, is the most expensive fighter here. So Magomed Ankalaev, he's a striker, and this is a striker versus striker matchup. And it's interesting because if this was 2018 and Thiago Santos was knocking people cold, I actually think I would favor Thiago Santos in this fight, but it's not. It was 2022. Thiago Santos looked a little flat in his last couple of fights, and Ankalaev is actually looking pretty good. So he's a long kickboxer. He uses range well. He's got devastating kicks, and he'll throw kicks right up the middle and catch you in the face, almost like what Anderson Silva did to Vitor Belfort years ago. And he has a backup plan if he needs it, and that's some wrestling. And you can see here 3 takedowns against Krylov. He took down Languiboula. He took down Ozdemir. And he scores pretty well, right? But when he gets a stoppage, he scores really well. I don't know if he's going to stop Thiago Santos. Like, Thiago Santos has lost a step. Obviously, we know that. But, you know, without a whole bunch of takedowns, without a whole bunch of control time, it's just point fighting. So granted, these are 3-round fights, and he scored, let's say, 80. Well, there's 3 takedowns there. There's 1 takedown here. Let's say he scored 70 points in 3 rounds. It's a little more than 20 points per round, so you add 2 more to it, you get another 40. He's probably worth the money. I do think he wins. He's basically a guarantee. But if you're chasing knockouts and stoppages, I don't know if Ankalaev is your guy. Let's take a quick look at Thiago Santos, who's the cheapest fighter on this card. I mean, 48 points in a 5-round win is bad. You get 30 points just for winning, which means he scored 18 points in 5 rounds with technique. 44 significant strikes, 44 total strikes in 5 rounds is bad. That's bad. I know you guys may mess with your lineups and you may need to fit somebody in there, and not Thiago Santos, because I don't think he's going to get the knockout. He finally got a nice decision win under his belt. The last time he knocked somebody out was Jan Blachowicz, which is impressive, but in 2019. So I'm not liking Thiago Santos to win the fight. I'm definitely not going to put him in my lineup. And Ankalaev, you know, he may be worth it. It really just depends on what else you're doing. And this is a tricky card. There's very few fighters that you're going to be able to 100% guarantee a win. And Thiago Santos is one of those guys. Miranda Maverick, $9,400. Not cheap. She's a big favorite over Sabina Mazo. Miranda Maverick's a good technical striker. She's got good solid pressure forward, and she's got decent takedowns. She's coming off that loss to Erin Blanchfield where she was just out-grappled. I mean, Erin Blanchfield has lived up to the hype. She's a killer grappler. She out-grappled Miranda Maverick. This loss to Macy Barber is trash. She won this fight. That was a bad decision. So she should have scored 63 points in this fight because that should have been a win. If we back up, the way she beat Robertson, 99 points in a decision. And I think this fight looks like this. I think there's a bunch of takedowns. I think she's super busy. She comes forward. I don't think she's necessarily going to stop Sabina Mazo, but I do think she'll be able to take her down, beat her up. And Sabina Mazo's a long kickboxer. She's got great kicks. People like to call her a lady crow cop because of those kicks. Let's jump into Sabina Mazo. She's coming off this submission loss to Agapova. Before that, Alexis Davis just outstruck the hell out of her. But she's in these fights. I mean, she's pretty tough. And here's her wins. 108 in a submission, 81 in a decision, 125 in this decision. And that's because of all of these takedowns, all of those strikes, the control time. When she's on, but she needs to be dictating. She needs to be making things happen. I don't think Miranda Maverick's going to let her do that. So Miranda Maverick's another one. I'm very confident in the fact that she's going to win. $9,400 is a lot of money, but once we start going down this list, I don't trust a lot of these people, and Matt Semelsberger is one of them. I actually am on the other side of this fight, but Matt Semelsberger, he's no joke. I mean, this was a solid one-punch KO. You know, he's got legit power in his hands, but Matt Semelsberger, he's an aggressive striker. He marches forward. He's got solid leg kicks, solid body work. He does have power. A lot of his finishes just come with forward pressure and grit. So he's not bad at all. He's a very good fighter, but $9,300 is a lot of money to spend because he is fighting, and there's not going to be any stats here, but he is fighting AJ Fletcher. And AJ Fletcher, again, no stats here because it's his official UFC debut, but AJ Fletcher is good. Very good. If you break down his tape, he is just short, compact powerhouse. He reminds me of a faster, more athletic Sean Shirk from back in the day. He's short, he's jacked, he's a very good wrestler, but he has insane power in his hands. And he does a great job coming forward, throwing with the hands, and then as soon as you throw something back, he drops his level, bang. Short, fast, powerful takedowns. I like AJ Fletcher to win this fight. I put a moneyline bet on AJ Fletcher to win this fight, and AJ Fletcher will be in my DraftKings lineup. This is a tough fight. I don't think this is like, oh, the odds makers blew it, blah, blah. This is a tough fight, but I do like AJ Fletcher to win. I think his takedowns are going to be too much. He definitely has very real power in his hands. He's stupid athletic. The cardio may be a concern because if you look at the guy, he doesn't exactly scream, I can fight 3 fast rounds. But I do like AJ Fletcher. I think he's the more versatile guy, and I think his takedowns will do it. Matt Semelsberger has a 100% takedown defense, but he's literally only defended one single takedown in the UFC. So it's kind of an inflated statistic. And that's Song Yadong in the co-main event. He's taking on Marlon Moraes, and this is super tricky. It's tricky because Marlon Moraes is a beast. He's an absolute killer. He's fought some of the best people on planet Earth. His last win was a while ago, but it was against Jose Aldo. Nasty kickboxer, works the legs, good pace. The problem is he fades big time after the first round. And people figured out that if you just pressure Marlon Moraes and get him backing up, he can have some issues. Song Yadong, he's very young. He's only 24 years old, but he's a good technical striker. He moves really well. He's fast and he hits hard. He's so athletic that he makes a lot of things happen. The problem is he's hittable. He is a hittable guy. He's hit with 4 significant strikes per minute, which is higher than the UFC average. But he is coming off some solid wins. He knocked out Julio Arce a few months ago. He beat Casey Kenny. I mean, he's been cut. But, it's just tricky because Song Yadong is younger. I'm not going to say he hits harder. He's definitely not more technical. But I think he's a little more versatile because he can come forward. He can react. He can mix in takedowns if he needs to. We haven't really seen that yet lately, but he can mix in some takedowns. And, he's at a good camp. He's doing all the right things. Where Marlon Moraes, he went to Tiger Muay Thai. He's trying to button things up, but he's older. He's beat up. And I love the guy, but you can't always count on him. I mean, look at this. 1-4 in his last 5. He does have a very long career here in the UFC, and that doesn't include all of his time on the regional circuit as well. And let's see. Where's the last win? The last win was Jose Aldo in 2019, as I mentioned, and he just stayed busy. He got 1 takedown. I like Song Yadong to win the fight, literally because of youth. But Marlon Moraes is live. He's very good. He kicks like a freaking horse. I like Marlon. I don't trust him in my DraftKings lineup. And, I think he's definitely a first-rounder bust kind of guy. But, Yadong should win. But this pricing's a little wide for somebody with the credentials. And, sorry, let's just look again real quick. Because I say the credentials of Marlon Moraes. He has lost, but look who he's lost to. Merab Dvalishvili, killer wrestler. Rob Font, going to be fighting for a title soon. Corey Sandhagen did fight for a title. People think he won that title. He beat Jose Aldo, lost to Henry Cejudo, former champion. I mean, it's easy to say he's 1-4 in his last 5, but look at it. The 1 win is an impressive win over a former champion who's now strung together his own win. So I like Marlon Moraes. I don't know if I'm going to pick him to win, but I don't know if I trust Song Yadong either, especially not at $9,000+ dollars. That takes us to Sadiq Youssef over Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres. I do think Sadiq Youssef wins, but this is another fight where Alex Caceres is riding a nice 5-fight win streak, and it's hard to pick against him with how good he's looked lately, but his competition hasn't, that win streak isn't exactly against the best guys in the world. Sadiq Youssef is a fantastic striker. He's got a ton of power, incredible speed. He has a nice wide variety of attacks that he mixes in. He uses leg kicks well, and his takedown defense is absolutely on point. He's coming off of the decision loss to Arnold Allen. He defended 3 out of 5 takedowns, but those 2 that he didn't defend was the differentiator there. I like Sadiq Youssef quite a bit. I mean, he's really, really impressive. But if we go to our buddy Bruce Leroy, he is riding that 5-fight win streak. And look at this. He beat Peterson, Chase Hooper, Springer, Kroom, and Seungwoo Choi. The Seungwoo Choi win was a very solid, impressive win. Kroom, that was short notice, and Kroom's a bit of a journeyman. Springer, what's he done since then? Chase Hooper, submission or bust, and Peterson's just super tough. His last loss was to Kron Gracie. That was a submission loss, but that happens. It's hard to pick against a guy that's streaking like this. He's only 32, but he has, look at all of this experience. Look at this. All the way back to 2011, he's been fighting in the UFC at a decent level, and that does not include the Ultimate Fighter. So Alex Caceres is a decent striker, a better grappler than you would expect, but he doesn't necessarily have the tools to get Sadiq down, control him down there, and really make it happen. So, this Kroom fight was a little closer than some people expected it to be, and I think if that's against Sadiq, then Sadiq's going to have his way. So I like Sadiq Youssef to win. Alex Caceres is very durable. I don't know if he'll get a stoppage, but again, there's very few fighters on this card at this price point that you can be pretty sure they're going to win, and Sadiq Youssef is one of them. And that takes us to Drew Dober. This is a short notice fight. Drew Dober is fighting Terrence McKinney. Terrence McKinney is stepping up on short notice. He just got a solid win 2 weeks ago over Faraz Ziam, which I was positive that was going to happen. Made a ton of money on that fight. And now he's fighting Drew Dober. Drew Dober is a kickboxer, a good kickboxer. He's got power in his hands. He's got solid, short, solid strikes, athletic guy, but he just never learned how to really defend those important takedowns. This loss to Brad Riddell, that was a great back and forth fight. And he was on his way to winning that fight. He dropped Brad Riddell. Brad Riddell dropped him, but then he got taken down how many times? Let me see. I have the stat here. How many times was he taken down? Brad Riddell took him down 5 times. 5 times. Terrence McKinney is a JUCO All-American wrestler. If Brad Riddell, the kickboxer, is taking down Drew Dober 5 times, I imagine Terrence McKinney takes him down whenever he wants to. The big question is always, with these guys that are surging, like Terrence McKinney, having these solid first-round wins, is he going to grapple? He may have convinced himself he's a striker now. His last fight over Faraz, let's take a look. His last fight over Faraz, yes, it's a submission, but you got to watch the fight because he didn't take Faraz down. There was like a weird trip exchange, and they ended up on the ground. And then he moved like butter, got a submission, and made it happen. So he's very capable on the ground, but he didn't initiate a takedown. It just happened. They literally fell. So my point here is I do like Terrence McKinney to win. I put a moneyline bet on him. He opened at a plus 220 underdog, and that line is moving. He's like plus 150 now. So a lot of money is coming in on Terrence McKinney. You're going to hear a lot of people just like me saying he's going to win. This is a very tough fight because he has to worry about getting punched in the mouth. He has been knocked out. Yes, we saw him destroy Favola on short notice, destroy Faraz, in that camp. But he was knocked out. He was knocked out on the Contender Series. And the reality is that, once that happens, his chin, it can happen again. So we can't necessarily count on him to get into a slugfest with Drew Dober and hang in there, where we can definitely count on Drew Dober to get into a disgusting slugfest war and not get stopped. So I like Terrence McKinney to win, $7,200. He's absolutely going to be in my lineup. But this is a tough fight. I get why the odds makers did what they did. But Terrence McKinney, you will have room for him, and I think he's a solid play. He should win, but I do think he needs to stick to that the wrestling to make it happen. And this is another weird one. We've got Alex Pajeta. He's a nasty kickboxer. He's fighting Bruno Silva, who's a nasty kickboxer. But Alex Pajeta was a professional kickboxer. He knocked out Israel Adesanya, the only person to ever knock out Israel Adesanya in a kickboxing match. And he's very impressive that with this win against Michailidis, he was taken down twice, but he kept his composure. He kept it together. He got back up and eventually blasted him in the face with a flying knee, got the knockout. I totally get why he's a giant favorite here. He's incredibly impressive, and his kickboxing resume speaks for itself. But Bruno Silva, so he had a very long layoff. He came back after that long layoff. It was 3 years because of PEDs, but he came back, knocked out Wellington Turman, who is Alex Pajeta's teammate, knocked out Sanchez. What was impressive about this one is he was taken down something stupid. It was like 7 times. Let's see. Yeah, he was taken down 7 times by Andrew Sanchez, well on his way to lose a decision, and then got that knockout in the 3rd round. And what that tells me is, okay, yeah, maybe work on your takedown defense a little bit. That's not going to be a problem against Alex Pajeta. But it shows me that he could be on the wrong side of a long fight, and he never quits on himself. He's never out of it. He doesn't mentally break, and he has power in his hands that entire time. That dude was exhausted and still had that power to make that happen. So I like Bruno Silva. I think he beats Alex Pajeta. One of these dudes is going to get knocked out, right? Bruno Silva has shown how tough he is. Alex Pajeta has shown how tough he is. But these dudes hit hard. They swing hard. Bruno Silva does have grappling. He has an incredible amount of KOs and TKOs in his career. A lot of them were from ground and pound. He will take people down and beat them up. We haven't needed to see that in the UFC because he's been knocking people out on their feet. I think Bruno Silva has more ways to win. I think he hits just as hard as Alex Pajeta. He's absolutely not nearly as technical as Alex Pajeta is. But what happens with some of these high-level kickboxers, he spent his whole life kickboxing and has had an enormous amount of success in that world. But the gloves, they're big kickboxing gloves, and you get used to blocking like this, marching forward, kicking and punching. The little 4-ounce UFC gloves can sneak right in, sneak in there, make things happen. We've seen this time and time again back in the day. A lot of the little guys back then were moving over from kickboxing, trying to make things happen. But it's a tough fight. By no means am I calling for the underdog win of the century here. But I do think Bruno Silva is going to pull this off. Just a giant wealth of MMA experience. The more well-rounded fighter as far as MMA is concerned. Not nearly as technical as Alex Pajeta, but certainly hits just as hard. And MMA is not kickboxing. You can get away with a little less technique with some forward pressure and some high volume. I like Bruno Silva. I will probably have him in my lineup, but this is a theme here, right? There's a lot of $7,000-ish guys that I like here, and it's a weird week. It's a weird week for a lot of people. Then let's take a look at Murzakanov. He's making his official UFC debut. There's a couple of these Contender Series guys, and he's the second one. The first one was AJ, what the hell was his name? AJ Fletcher that I liked against Matt Semelsberger. And then Murzakanov is another one. Let's go to Nchukwi, who he's fighting. We will have some statistics there. Where are you, bud? There we go, at $7,400. The pricing on this card is crazy. So anyway, Tafon Nchukwi, he's a second fight up at light heavyweight. He was a little big for middleweight. He's moved up to light heavyweight. He's a good technical striker. He's got legit power, solid technique. His issue has always been volume. He's always struggled a little bit with the volume, but once he hits a rhythm and he really lets himself go and just settles in, he starts putting it together, he looks absolutely fantastic. He showed up big time against Mike Slow Rodriguez. And he's not just a striker. He went 3 for 3 with takedowns in that fight as well. And he had 5 minutes of control time, as you see here. And, you know, he's a pretty well-rounded guy. He can really make stuff happen. Asmat Murzakanov, he's not the biggest light heavyweight in the division, but he makes up for that size with just raw power. He's got very real power. He's fast, he's heavy-handed, and he's a very good wrestler. He's got solid ground and pound. We just haven't needed to see his wrestling because he's just got so much power in his freaking hands. But I do like Asmat to win this fight. You know, he's a little expensive because he's unproven. He's coming off the Contender Series. I know you people love to fade Contender Series guys, but I do like Azamat Murzakanov to win this fight. I'm certainly not going to have Tefan Nchukwi in my lineup. And Azamat, I may, because I do think there's going to be some wrestling here. I think he's going to go to his wrestling, which we haven't really seen yet in the UFC for him. But I think he's going to go to it, and he's going to try to make stuff happen there. I don't know if he's going to slug it out the whole time on his feet. So I like Azamat. And again, the pricing is crazy on this card. It's tricky. There's a lot of really live underdogs, and Nchukwi's another one. Then we have Javid Bajarat. And Javid Bajarat, another official UFC debut. So let's close out of this, and we will go to Trevin Jones, who is fighting. So Trevin Jones. This should be another fun fight. This card is honestly a really fun card. So Trevin Jones, he's a fun striker. He's got a ton of power. He throws everything with 100%. Every single thing that leaves his body is with 100% power and bad intentions. He's not the most technical striker, but he doesn't need to be because he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So if he gets taken down, he can more than hold his own down there. He is coming off that submission loss to Kakhmanov, but that happens to everybody. He fell in love with his power, which is sort of the issue here, right? Because he does have the jiu-jitsu in his back pocket, but he got himself some knockouts, fell in love with it, and then he sort of turned into more of a striker. And Trevin's fighting Javid Bajarat. He's a grappler. He has incredible offensive and defensive wrestling. He has absolutely no problems with a kickboxing match if that happens, and he can be a problem in this division. If you watch some of his fights in the past, he was actually winning kickboxing matches, and he just used constant movement to stay out of danger, and then he just lunges in to land his own strikes. And, it's interesting because a lot of these guys are a bit unproven. This is another Contender Series guy. We can say the Contender Series fade is in full effect on this card. But I like Javid to win this fight. I think he beats Trevin Jones. I love his just insane movement. Javid would just stay on the outside, just constantly moving left and right, forward, backwards, left and right. And then he'll take shots. He'll wrestle really well. But he's not desperate about it. You don't get the impression like he's a very good wrestler. He needs to shoot. It's just there when it's there, and he's very comfortable striking. So I like Javid to win this fight, but another very live underdog with Trevin Jones, especially with the power that he has in his hands. Let's see what we got next. Then we've got Chris Motino. So he's coming off of this ridiculous loss. I wish I could show you the other side of these statistics. Sean O'Malley beat the brakes out of Chris Motino. In 3 rounds, Sean O'Malley landed, hold on. I got the stats here. Sean O'Malley landed 230 strikes in 3 rounds on Chris Motino. 177 of them were on his face. Just cracked him in the face 177 times. And Chris Motino has proven he's ridiculously durable. His striking is okay. He just comes forward, throwing strikes. Literally, that's his game plan is walk forward like a robot and throw strikes. If you get hit, it doesn't matter. Keep doing that. He does have wrestling in his back pocket. He's from the Northeast. I'm from the Northeast. I wrestled my whole life. He had some success wrestling and, at the high school level, but still, he had some success in New England wrestling. But he doesn't even attempt. He got hit in the face 177 times and never said, maybe I should shoot a takedown. He didn't even attempt it, didn't try it, didn't try to change anything, was just happy to get hit in the face 177 times. And the problem with that is he's fighting Guido Canetti, and you're going to see the stats, you're going to be like, Jesus Christ, this guy's terrible. But the problem is Guido Canetti's not terrible. Yes, he hasn't won a fight in a while, since 2018, and he's 1-4 in his last 5, but he is good. He's a good kickboxer. He has had a rough run. He is over 40. He has lost 3 in a row, but he's only fought twice in 2 years. And he's got really nice kicks. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he makes up for that. He's got solid volume, solid movement, and he's a good kickboxer. Chris Motino does not have any power. He's shown that. And he's very hittable. And if we look at Guido Canetti, he lost to Manny Martinez. Manny Martinez is legit. And the fact that Manny Martinez didn't knock Guido out is kind of surprising, honestly. But then he lost to Dana Bagarai. He was knocked out there. He lost to Vera. Very good fighter. He lost to Kang many years ago. Listen, I've been trashing Chris Motino here. I think he literally wins only because he's young and he's clearly durable as hell. I don't think he's a better fighter. I don't think he has much to offer. I don't think he's a danger. And honestly, Guido Canetti may be the livest 42-year-old underdog that has ever fought in the UFC. So I'm not touching this fight on either side. Neither one of these guys should be in your lineup. Neither, just don't touch it. Leave it alone. There's 14 fights, which means there's 28 fighters. You can leave these two out and work with 26 fighters. So I think Chris wins literally because he's younger and we know he can take a beating. Guido's 42, can't exactly take a beating the same way that Chris can. But it's striker versus striker. Guido's definitely the more technical striker, but he's starting to age out. And Chris, he's really tough. And good credit to him. He's incredibly, incredibly tough. Then we have Jillian Robertson. We've got two really competitive female fights on this card. And Jillian Robertson, she's fighting JJ Aldrich. And it's an interesting matchup because Jillian Robertson, she's very well-rounded. She is primarily a wrestler. She had this 2-fight skid. She bounced back with that nice win over Caceres. But if we look at her takedowns here, she does get takedowns. 3, 3, 2, 1. And she does, she sticks to that game plan. She comes forward, good heavy pressure, works for the takedowns, and then goes from there, right? She's not necessarily going to shock the world with knockouts or anything like that. But she's a grappler, good heavy pressure, nice and strong. And she's faced a solid level of competition. If we take a look at JJ Aldrich, because not many women fight JJ the way that I think Jillian is going to. JJ Aldrich, she's a decision machine, right? She's got this one TKO loss. But outside of that, she is a decision machine. She's very durable, but doesn't have any stoppage tools, right? So both sides of that decision coin. The good side is she's durable. The bad side is she's not submitting people. She's not knocking people out. She's a decent striker. She's got her own good takedowns here. She took down Casey 4 times. She sneaks in takedowns in some of her other fights as well. And she fights within her skill set. She does not take risks. She will do clean technical striking, will never overextend herself to try to knock somebody out. And if it hits the ground, she's just looking for control and pressure. She's not really looking for submissions there. I think Jillian Robertson comes forward, pressures, bullies, and takes down Aldrich and just sort of controls her from there. I think JJ's unwillingness to take risks is probably what loses her this fight. So I like Jillian Robertson to win. $8,500, this is a close-ish fight. So $8,500 is not the greatest price point in the world, but I do think Jillian wins. I think she'll get some takedowns and should probably score pretty okay for your money. Then we've got Kamuela Kirk. And this is an interesting fight because he's fighting Damon Jackson. So Kamuela Kirk here is the favorite in this matchup. He's a grappler. He's got decent takedowns, but he does tend to fade later in the fight. He'll get sucked into kickboxing matches where his offense is actually pretty technical, but he is very hittable because he keeps his hands super low. And when he's striking, he does a decent job of managing range. He throws out just clean 1-2s. He's coming off this win over Amirkhani, which is an interesting win because Amirkhani's a grappler. And he's fighting Damon Jackson, who is also a grappler. You can see he had 6 takedowns against Charles Rosa. And this is the fight that makes this so hard to pick because Charles Rosa is a nasty grappler. His striking's okay, but not real dangerous at all. So when we see, okay, he took down Charles Rosa 6 times, well, that's because he didn't have to worry about anything on the feet. And on the ground, he was comfortable enough that he wasn't going to get submitted. I think Kamuela Kirk is much better on his feet. So I don't know if Damon's going to settle into as much of a rhythm where he's just going to shoot a million takedowns. But I hope he does because I do think Damon Jackson wins this fight. Both of these guys are very hittable. They have upside down hitting differentials. I think Damon's the better offensive wrestler. I think he's the more technical striker, but Kirk definitely has power and Damon is definitely a bit chinny. So that's what makes me a little nervous is if he's taking bad shots and Kirk is managing range well, Damon's going to get cracked. But I like Damon to win here. $7,800 is a decent price, especially if you think it's going to look like this with the 6 takedowns or look like this with the 3. And then you start to score some solid points and really make something happen. I mean, 113 points in a decision win. He was definitely worth his salt in that fight. So I think Damon Jackson's a solid play if you're thinking about throwing him in your lineup. Then we have Dalcha Languiboula big, heavy-handed striker. And Dalcha Languiboula is going out there, and he is fighting Cody Brundage. And it's another interesting fight. This whole card is loaded with pretty interesting fights. So Dalcha Languiboula hits like a truck, athletic, fast. He's short for the division, but he's jacked, and he's just so fast and powerful. His height doesn't even matter. He comes forward with insane pressure, insane power, and he can grapple if he needs to. You can see 2 takedowns against Bajarat, 4 against Townsend. He has that takedown against Perez. And he's always there live for a knockout. And in this fight, he took Townsend down 4 times and still knocked him out. So he scored incredibly well. And again, if you're on this side, you can't go wrong with an $8,300 price point. But Cody Brundage, let's jump into Cody here. Cody Brundage, he's coming off that loss to Nick Maximoff. And, he was out-wrestled in that fight. And it's unfortunate, but Nick Maximoff is a very good college wrestler. Cody Brundage is also a college wrestler, and this was his UFC debut, and this was on short notice. So I think he has decent chain wrestling. I think he also throws big, heavy punches. He has had a rough run in the UFC. He lost to William Knight on the Contender Series, where he was pretty much dominating William Knight, and then William just started elbowing him on the side of the head, and then that was the end of that. But, it's just such a hard pick. It's such a hard pick because Dalcha is good and he hits hard. I do think Cody's good. I think he's going to wrestle nonstop. I think he has a very clear path to victory, and so does Dalcha. Dalcha just needs to keep it standing and let his hands fly. Cody just needs to wrestle, get that out there. I think Cody can pull this off with a bunch of takedowns. Dalcha will obviously be very live, but I like Cody. But again, these guys are so evenly priced. Pick your side, make your decision. Because if you think Dalcha is going to knock him out the same way that William Knight did, then $8,300 is a bargain. If you think Cody's going to take Dalcha down over and over and over and control him and work from there, $7,900 is a bargain. And that takes us to the last fight that I will be breaking down. We've got Karl Roberson, and he's taking on Khalil Roundtree. And this is an interesting fight because Khalil Roundtree, this is his first fight since the side kicks to the knee that everybody should be calling, or everybody's calling to be illegal. He kicked Bukaskis in the knee and just blew his knee out. And it's just, I'm not going to say it's a dirty technique because it's perfectly legal. It's well within the rules. And John Jones has done it for years, but it's rough. It's rough. You can really do some more than fight ending damage with something like that. But anyway, Karl Roberson, he's a decently well-rounded guy. He's got solid striking. He's got a few sneaky submissions off of his back. He doesn't really initiate a ton of takedowns, but he can grapple if he gets to the ground. The UFC seems to use him to get other fighters wins, right? They threw him at Marvin Vettori when Marvin Vettori was on a bit of a skid. They threw him at Brendan Allen when Brendan Allen was on a bit of a skid. And they seem to just be putting him out there to get people back on track. So they're using him, unfortunately. And the odds makers have it as a pick'em. DraftKings has it as a pick'em. I get it. Let's go to Khalil. I think Khalil is the better. Where are you? I think Khalil is the better, absolutely the better striker. He can be gun shy though. He can be low volume at times and just not really put it out there. And Karl Roberson does not have the best takedowns, but he does have 57% takedown accuracy. We did see him use his wrestling when he beat Darren Stewart. He beat Jack Marshman, Kopylov with his wrestling. I think Roberson is going to be looking for a win here. I think he's going to get the takedowns. Khalil Roundtree was talking about retirement at one point, and this, while he is coming off this knockout, it's not what it seems. The fight was a little bit close, and then those knee kicks seemed to change that up. But he had a little bit of a skid before that, and this is a pick'em. I totally get why it's a pick'em. Khalil hits hard, very talented striker. I think Roberson is pretty durable. I think Roberson can enact his own forward pressure wrestling game plan. I don't think he's going to want to strike for strike with Roundtree. And Roberson, I don't think he has to worry about getting taken down himself or worried about getting submitted. So I like Roberson to win this fight, but this is going to be one of the weirdest DraftKings cards in a while. I think the pricing is super wide on a lot of these guys, and your winning lineup may have a ton of money left over. You may have an extra $1,500, $2,000 in your winning lineup, but we'll see what happens. Let me know your favorite picks and plays below. Make sure you go to WeWantPicks.com/DraftKings, sign up and join our free DraftKings League. It literally costs nothing to join. It costs nothing to compete in the contest every week. If you click the join button under the video to become a member, you qualify for our $50 payout every week. Every week there's a winner, and if that winner's a member, we give them $50. Become a member, qualify yourself, chase that $50. I'll see you guys on Friday for our final DraftKings breakdown.